LegaliseFreedom.com. Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where are we going? From the nature of reality to the future of humanity. Listen without limits. Unchain your brain. Change your thinking. Change your life. LegalizeFreedom.com.
Greetings and welcome once again to LegalizeFreedom.com. I'm your host, Greg Moffitt. Beginning in August 2020, Freedom from Fear is a free-form discussion series taking the title as its starting point. In this episode, Phil Escott and I discuss the pandemic of fear ripping across the planet in the wake of the COVID-19 scare. Our modern obsession with safety and security, whether physical, emotional or both, is stifling and shutting down the natural free spirit all humans are born with. But life cannot ever be completely safe or secure, and was never meant to be. Those who seek to deny us the freedom to choose how we engage with the amazing and sometimes unpredictable world we find ourselves in, also deny themselves the magic and mystery of life itself. What do we wish our earthly existence to be? A technocratic prison planet dystopia, or a spontaneous order of intimately interconnected sentient beings? On a deeper level, we also explore the darker forces at work in this transitional time for our planet and ask, are current events all that they at first appear to be? If the real battle taking place is in fact a spiritual conflict, we may be on the cusp of almost unimaginable change on Earth. Hello and welcome, Phil. Thank you so much for joining us again today on LegalizeFreedom.com.
Well, Greg, it's great to be back, and thank you so much for asking me again. And it's funny, we go back quite a long way, and we've met in real life a few times, and it's been a crazy time since we last chatted. So I'm looking forward to this one.
It has. Now, some listeners may be familiar with chats we did previously on the channel here. We've talked about alternative healthcare, ways of looking after yourself that are more natural. We've talked about the carnivore lifestyle, carnivore diet, and pros, cons, and just controversy around that. And I think we also did a general chat about sort of spiritual awakenings. But anyway, if people have not heard us in conversation before, just tell people a little bit about yourself. And because you're a sort of man of many talents, many strings to your bow, this is why we've talked on so many different subjects.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, I think probably what I'm best known for online is this carnivore thing. It's very strange to have been branded as the sort of English carnivore guy, but it was just something that I discovered after many, many years of researching into diet and in 2010 becoming very, very ill with rheumatoid arthritis and having to search ways of getting out of the fear, which is one of the main things you have to do, which is the topic of our conversation today, but also looking at all the things that I'd done over the years and all the ways that I was horrendously wrong and all the way that all the standard dogma was wrong. And so, I found a way to fix that. And I've got a little interesting thing about, almost 10 years to the day in October, just gone, where it came back again. And I had to figure it out again without any fear, which was an interesting journey too, this last couple of months. And, which was to do with the present situation, actually, directly and indirectly. So most of my life I've spent as a sort of hippie traveller, living in buses and teepees early on in my 20s, and then on to spirituality and lots of meditation and massive amounts of hallucinogenics at one stage, and then into living up in Skelmersdale, where I still am actually, but on the fringes of the Transcendental Meditation Movement Centre up here, where They have a lot of good stuff, in spirituality. There's a lot of wonderful stuff, and I think Greg and I have chatted about it on other one of our other chats. But and so I'm on the fringes of that now. I mean, I still have friends in it, but there's a lot of holes in that, really, in the dogma in that keeps you in fear as well. And now I think just the last 10 years have been really transformational of looking into a lot of the complete myths in everything across the board, whether it's health, whether it's how the politicians are duping us, whether it's mainstream media and what's going on at the moment, and the corporations and how they fool us into thinking that they have our best interests at heart, and how to get rid of the fear and how to become a kind of sovereign human being again, and how to reclaim that state of being responsible and for your own health and your own thoughts and your own family and your own path, really. And I think that's led me to the last 18 months, which has been some of the most fulfilling times of my life, which is working with my colleagues now, Ben Hunt, Graham Norbury, and Jeremy Ayres, and our publisher, John Gusty in the States, and with the Human Unleashed, and a lot of the videos we've made together, many videos on so many subjects. And it seems to be one of those sort of meetings of the spirits. And I always thought I'd find my ideal band behind the drum kit, so I'm also a drummer, but it turns out no, that I found my ideal band in the sort of health and sort of blowing up of dogma sphere. So that's where I am right now, and working with them and working on a couple of books, one that's coming out soon, which is really based on helping people to reestablish their own sovereignty, to be able to not be influenced by these controllers, these owners in society that spread fear-mongering. And it's called the Red Pill Revolution. It'll be out in I think a couple of weeks now. We're just doing a couple of little tweaks on it, but I think that's really the basis of what I do when I look at it, is sort of finding ways to get rid of fear about what's happening. And that doesn't mean to say I'm always immune to it, but the amount of layers of fear that I've got rid of so far allows me to sort of hopefully nip these things in the bud when they come up, and realize that most of the things we're frightened of never actually happen. So that's where I am now, really.
Well, Frank Herbert had it, fear is the mind killer.
Yes.
It really is. It clouds your judgment. One thing I will mention, first of all, I didn't know about this Red Pill project, by the way. That sounds very interesting. But there are a couple actually who have had on as guests, and I think you guys would be very much on the same page. They run a Facebook group called After the Red Pill. And it's Colin E. Davis and Melissa Murray, and I've had them on talking about these subjects, and they kind of embody for me the spirit of this Human Unleashed. And as soon as I saw that you were doing talks under this title, I thought that's what a great name for it, And I said, that's something that, if I hadn't settled on Legalise Freedom years ago, maybe something like Human Unleashed would have been perfect, because it made me stand on top of the table and just shout at the top of my lungs, because everything is summed up perfectly in that. We are so incredibly powerful, whether it's physically, mentally, we're capable of so much, but we're constantly fed the idea that we're worthless and that we're nothing. And it has manifested itself most perniciously during the pandemic, in the idea that there's nothing you can do. The whole societies of people have been rendered unable to care for themselves, whether they're actually incapable of it or whether they've just been told they are. You run a business, you will not be able to do that anymore. You will suck on the government we will say when you stand up, when you sit down, when you come, when you go. And for me, the Human Unleashed was just, and I've enjoyed listening to so many of your conversations you've had with those guys. It makes me feel energized, just the phrase.
Oh, that's lovely, mate. I mean, we get so many messages. When we started this off, we thought, well, who's gonna listen to this? And I also put them up on my YouTube channel, which is just under my own name, Phil Escott, and they're all available on there. And I'm really surprised that they're still there, to be honest. I mean, I think we got like 22 of them up now, and I get subscribers taken away now. I mean, when I think about it, sort of a year ago before we started putting them up, I had 10,000 subscribers, and it hasn't shifted since then. And yet I get messages from loads of people that we're being unsubscribed, being shadow banned. And yet I'll go to the local supermarket and have people coming up and saying, wow, you know, those Human Unleashed chats, thank you so much for them. And they've really empowered us and helped us to get through this situation. I'm like, come on, we can't have 1,000 views on each of these if there's that many people that you run into locally, you know, and most of the people we hear from are in the States. So we're falling foul of that censorship that's going on, that widespread censorship at the moment, because we're obviously pushing some buttons. But it's lovely to hear that people like them. I mean, I have to say that my expertise is more in the health sphere and the sort of spiritual sphere and whatever. And I have to bow to my, particularly two of my colleagues, Graham Norbury and Jeremy Ayres, who have been really teaching me so much, because they've seen this whole situation coming up for decades, and they really understand what's happening in the whole financial system and the whole political system, and even above that with the you know, the stuff that we're not allowed to talk about really, with all the controllers really of the planet and what they're planning, which has been set out for centuries really. You know, if you look back at old stuff like the Club of Rome, and the stuff that I've learned in the last year has really put all the suspicions I've had all my life into perspective. And none of it's made me frightened, because I mean, even from the first second, I had one twinge back in February or whenever it was, when they said that they brought a load of people back from China and the buses were coming in and that they were named after the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse or something like that, or the company was. And they brought these infected people back from China into Liverpool, right near where I live. And then I looked at the videos and I thought, well, hang on, the bus drivers are just sitting there with no protective gear on and they're not bothered. And I thought, there's something wrong here. And from that moment, you know, I had one moment of little sort of butterflies of, oh my God, my kids are going to be hit with a deadly pandemic. And that lasted probably, you know, about 30 seconds or something. And then I looked at it and I thought, nah, there's something wrong here. And this is going to be a massive spreading of fear mongering. And since then, you know, learning from Jeremy and Graham really about what has been going on politically and above that, of how the politicians are controlled, has been incredibly eye-opening and really incredibly calming in a way. Because I think that with all the scary stuff going on, with all the sort of possibilities, whether you're frightened, whether you're one of these people who wears muzzles in the supermarket, or even as I was shouting with my kids today as I took them to a dance class, people walking around in the street miles from anybody on their own with muzzles on, of how we've all been fooled. When you look at that and the possibilities of the dangers of this society coming up and how it might be destroyed, or whether you're one of these people with muzzles frightened of some virus that has really caused no problems whatsoever, you know, in the scheme of things, whether you're either one of those, I think that really educating yourself and looking at what's happened in the past and leading up to this is one of the finest ways of getting rid of that fear. And I'm actually still very positive, because as long as you don't look at the mainstream media where it's all, you know, pushing all this nonsense and doom and gloom if it doesn't happen, there is probably no other outlet. I mean, I've listened to a lot of your videos, and you're spot on about it as well. I mean, how people can't see this for the fear-mongering it is, even if they're watching the mainstream media now, because none of it adds up, really, if you're watching it day to day. And so I think really educating yourself and turning off the TV and looking at all these other beautiful outlets, like, for example, Del Bigtree's Highwire, you know, where he's bringing on so many scientists and epidemiologists and virologists and doctors, and nobody's saying anything like the mainstream. So you get that in you have immediately no fear of any virus. And then you look at some of the people who are very, very much in touch with to take it into the sort of woo-woo sort of arena, really, but some of the people who have been very connected with all of this stuff as it leads up, whether they do it by intuition, whether they do it by astrology or whatever, but how this is a very beautiful time to be alive, and we just have to sit back and enjoy this show as it plays out, because hard as it might be in the short term, I'm with Jeremy that I'm very optimistic that this will come out in a beautiful conclusion at some point. Hopefully soon, hopefully over the winter or in the spring, but hopefully we could be sort of passing into some kind of age of enlightenment, I think.
Well, there's so many points really to comment on from what you just said. I think that the bottom line for me is that, what you mentioned about, educating yourself, becoming aware really is the antidote to fear. I think that it stands as a general statement, but particularly applicable in this time. And of course, one of the memes that's been going around over the last few months is basically demonizing or trying to make appear foolish people who are doing their own research. Kind of like, you're not medically qualified. Why would you be doing any research? How could you possibly trust any learning that you could do on your own? But the point is not to pretend that you're a medical doctor or you're a virologist or any of these other scientific roles that take years of training. But that doesn't mean that you still have to be that helpless jellyfish that I referred to earlier, who doesn't do anything to inform themselves in any sort of independent way. And as far as the media goes, it's been spectacularly unhelpful. There hasn't been anything. Speaking to you with your alternative health and natural health, shall we say, ways of keeping yourself healthy in harmony with nature, with that hat on, has there been any talk about anything that you can do as far as your diet or exercise or any other regimen that will boost your immune system? There's been no talk about that whatsoever. It's all been absolute helplessness and looking to outside agencies. And this is one of the things I think people in life, it's one of the great life lessons for me, is like, stop looking to third parties for your reason, for your salvation, for whatever it happens to be. Stop looking outside. You have everything you need within yourself. And that, I apply that to the current situation in terms of our own bodies. Our bodies do give up sometimes. You're living testament to that. Our systems do sometimes fail, but they're the best defense we've got, as they are. The ingenious design.
Oh, totally. I mean, I made a video a while ago called, what was it? Eat fatty meat, get plenty of sun, protect the NHS, save lives. And it was a real sort of passionate one about the real pandemic here, which is the same people who are pushing all the vaccines and all the COVID mainstream stuff, the advice that they give for staying healthy is really absolute nonsense, completely controlled by the drug companies and the agriculture companies that want us to eat cereal in the morning and a sandwich for lunch and then, pasta and whatever in the evening. And this whole business, this whole sort of eat well plate and the standard guidelines that are put out, and the guidelines actually that the WHO put out about how to avoid COVID and avoid animal fats and eat vegetable oils. And, vegetable oils are probably the single most dangerous thing that's ever been given to humans. I mean, I think I'm always down on grains, and I think our health went down 10,000 years ago when we started farming grains. And so people who eat bread and rice and pasta all the time are probably in trouble. But the real problem is seed oils. It's absolute utter poison, and this is what they're pushing over animal fats. And it's just funny when you look at it. I mean, logic tells you that for millennia we were healthy. We didn't have any of these problems, and we were hunters. Look at a cave painting. I studied diet for decades, and 30 years I was caught in this nonsense, and I realized that 40 years of diet study now, I should have just looked at a cave painting, and there's one bloke and one spear and one mammoth, and we didn't have any of these problems that we have now. So obviously the WHO advice is absolute nonsense, and they're all pushing the plant-based dogma, the veganism, and the climate change thing, which is another load of fear mongering. Because I've been listening to not even climate scientists who think it's all nonsense, but climate scientists who think it's real, but who actually think that all our solutions are nonsense. And that's exactly what you've touched on there, with the health thing. I mean, this COVID thing, whatever it is, we've gone into massive discussions on the Human Unleashed about what it is. I'm still not sure. I don't know if viruses are communicable. I don't know if they're pathogenic. I don't even know if they exist as such, and they're not exosomes produced from the cells, as Dr. Andrew Kaufman goes on about so eloquently, and Stefan Lanka. Those two are very, very worth listening to. I'm not sure whether they're not just stuff that's produced by the cells to help mop up at times of detox, natural times of detox, at autumn, spring, winter equinoxes. This is what generally happens. But whatever's happening, if you're not messed up, if you've not been following the standard diet, or even worse, the whole junk food diet, if you haven't been following what 99% of people on the planet follow, then you have no problem with this. Whatever it is, you're not going to have a problem with it. Whether it's a detox, that's going to be less severe in the autumn because you're going to have less crap to get rid of. If it is a communicable virus, the body's immune system is going to be much more powerful to get rid of it. So why are they just not cottoning on to this? I mean, Boris Johnson had it, apparently, whatever it is. He probably just had a regular seasonal cold, but assuming he had this horrendous, deadly virus that's going around, he got over it with the help of the NHS and all this sort of thing. And then he suddenly realizes that he's a fat bastard and he's got to do something about it. So then he's sort of posting, I'll eat less and go cycling. It just doesn't work. If it was going to work, then people would be off their diabetes meds in no time. Like I see on my carnivore group, if you just eat meat and nothing else, diabetes is a joke illness. So all of this stuff that they're putting out is complete nonsense. And even if you don't change your diet, there are ways around it. The whole, when you see this video of Fauci back in 2005 talking about hydroxychloroquine and how effective it is against all respiratory ailments, and now he's saying it's nonsense and you can't have it because he's so financially involved in other things, of course, and in league with Bill Gates and all that kind of thing. But if you look at them, people can call you conspiracy theorists for this kind of thing. But if you look back at what he was saying in 2005, he's saying exactly what the doctors are saying now. We're saving lives. We're not putting them on ventilators. We're not. So all of this, if you can't get hold of hydroxychloroquine, you just take a load of zinc and you take quercetin, which has the same effect as hydroxychloroquine, and gets the zinc into the cells. Maybe take some vitamin D if you like, or get under a sunbed even in the winter. Take some vitamin C if you like, or just go fully carnivore and really get your immune system up. Drop all the plants completely. Another controversial thing, since we're all told that 5 a day is the thing to do, and we need a load of fiber, which is absolute nonsense. If that was true, I've eaten carnivore and no plants for the last 6 years, so I'd be dead by now. But actually just increasing health. So, on all layers. And I think one of the important things, Greg, here is that what I'm proud of is my carnivore group, 100% Carnivore and Beyond on Facebook, that I started for just 5 friends about 3 years ago. Now there's, I think, 14,000 people or something. But when people post stuff about this, they're so open. I think when you've seen through one aspect of the complete and utter bullshit that's put out to us by the mainstream dogma, it's easier to see through the other things, right? I mean, if you've gone and tried eating nothing but meat and suddenly all your health issues have cleared up, all of the things that are supposed to be caused by meat and fat get cured by a carnivore diet. And once you've seen something like that, or it's the people who've woken up through realizing that 9/11 was nonsense, like Graham and Jeremy, maybe, my colleagues, whatever it is that's woken you up, you can see through the other things. You go, hang on a minute. The media is pumping out vegetarian food and fiber and fruit and veg and all of this kind of thing. And you think, hang on, that's nonsense. So what else is wrong? And then it's much easier to look, early on in this thing, I used to just turn the TV on and just actually cry with laughter. I thought, all of this is such nonsense. How can anybody not see this as anything but a comedy show? But now I see the damage they've done. And the horrific things that have happened. My partner, my girlfriend, she works as a nurse on the front line. And, she's hugging COVID patients and she won't wear a muzzle and she knows what's going on. These are not COVID patients. These people have just tested positive with this faulty PCR test, this ridiculous thing that they give them. So they're locked up in old folks' homes, not being able to see their family and friends. And it's criminal. It's genocide. And so she goes in, she hugs them. If they want to kiss her, that's fine, And she has no fear of it, no fear at all. And I know a lot of other people on the front line who've seen through it. And when you see this happening, okay, something's going on. There is something respiratory that's hitting people. But I don't think it's anything like we've been told. And if you ate right and if you did all the other right things, which doesn't involve giving up alcohol, jogging and eating a high-fiber diet, all these things that we've been told. Not that I'm condoning alcohol, in moderation, obviously. But, this is not the problem. The problem is the corporations. The problem is the owners of this planet who are earning the billions from this pandemic. And you follow the money and you see the incredible deceptions that are happening. If you saw what we all saw day to day, reversals of so-called incurable diseases and people just lifting out of depression as they fix their guts and use certain techniques to live more in the present, which we might get into later on. But, when you see this happening, it's just so beautiful. And this would all be over if they told all of this stuff with the same brainwashing frequency as they do on the mainstream media. This would be over, don't you think? This would be over in a day or two.
Today, you mentioning about your girlfriend hugging people, today was a big day for me, coincidentally, because I shook someone's hand. I shook the hand of a stranger today, and the last time I did that was on March 16th. It was Monday. And it was someone I was introduced to back then, and it was like I was going to be showing him the ropes on some task that he needed to do, so I was introduced to him. I can't remember his name now, because I only met him. He was out of a job the next day. This is John. Hello, John, this is Greg. Greg will show you what you need to do. Hi, John, shake hands. And he said to me, "Oh, we're not supposed to do this, are we?" And that was March the 16th. And today I shook hands with a guy who's a street poet. He was just had a little microphone set up, and he was reading his poems on the street, and they were, of a sort of political nature. And I stood and talked to him for half an hour. And he said at the end of it, he said, I'll feel better. He said, because I didn't come out here feeling very good today about everything that's happening. And I said to him, well, I'm a people person. I like talking to people. And we shook hands and, we went our separate ways. And so, this is a momentous moment for me, really, for that human contact. But you reference it again with, the situation in care homes and the elderly and what have you. And, my mother's in a care home and I'm not convinced I'm going to see her alive again, to be quite frank with you.
That's tragic, mate. My mother, she was 94, 26, 2018, 23, 2018. She was coming up to 95. And the couple of years before that, we had reversed her breast cancer. I've got a video showing that with photographic evidence. At 92, 93, we reversed her breast cancer on a carnivore diet with a 5-pound bottle of Legalise iodine as well. And kept her clear of all the drugs and chemo and whatever. And then she got, there's a video on my YouTube channel about it, but it gets shadow banned a lot. They don't like that. It's from a talk I did to doctors, and they were very open. And I love it when you see an oncologist turn around and go, how on earth did you do that? It's so cool. And they've never seen it before. It's so weird. I've seen loads of cases of it now. But, when she got the Australian flu, at the end of 2017, And she had bronchiectasis, so her alveoli were blown out in her lungs, and we got her off all the steroids and whatever, and her lungs were getting a bit better, but her lungs were still very compromised. So, the flu hit her hard. It was a nasty flu that autumn. And then it carried on. It sort of lingered on, and into the spring she got pneumonia, and she went into hospital. She recovered from it. She was fine. And then she went back in like April, and she died from it. And we were allowed to be there and be by her bedside. But that is no different to what's happening now. And if it was now, we wouldn't have been allowed in to see her. Well, to be honest, I'd have been walking into the hospital punching people, because it's just bollocks. I won't stand for it. I've not worn a muzzle. I never will. I've never worn one for a second. I'll go to jail before I wear one of those. I'll get shot before I take one of their vaccinations. But I won't stand for it. I will not stand for it. I won't have it. And she died, and she would have been obviously COVID positive if it had happened this year. So I'm sure they could have given her a PCR test and said that it was COVID back then if there had been a word for it. So that as I think I mentioned before, this was this PCR test with Carrie Mullins, who invented it, and how he's spoken out against how useless that test is, and Fauci as well. He's spoken out a lot against Fauci because he's worked with Fauci, and so that he really, really doesn't know much. And it's suspicious that Carrie Mullins died about a year ago, before all this kind of pandemic came in. But he was amazing. He was a Nobel Prize winner. He was a very, very bright guy, and he could see through all of this nonsense. And so now we're relying on these tests and creating this test-demic. So, I honestly don't think anything different is happening, really. Well, actually, there's fewer deaths, overall than there were back in 2017, 2018 with that Australian flu, as they called it, which took my mum. And, this will happen. This will happen. So many old folks die. They get to that kind of age, and pneumonia is kind of the thing that sees them out. But we have seen, we've got friends on the front line, and we have seen early on in this, we saw so many handover sheets, medical records, just faked, really. I mean, at the end of an enormous amount of comorbidities, an enormous amount of polypharmacy, any one of which could have killed these people. In the next month or two, there's COVID tacked on the end. And often it's just suspected. I mean, we have a friend who, I don't know if I should reveal this, but we have a friend who will remain nameless, who has been, just as they did in the 1918 flu pandemic, attempted to infect himself by putting swabs from COVID patients up his own nose. And just as they proved in the 1918 flu pandemic, it isn't actually even communicable. There's something else going on. So, I mean, that sounds like a terrible conspiracy theory. Oh, my God, of course it happens. Of course it works this way. Of course it's spread by, coughing and sneezing and using too many T's and P's when you're singing in a band in a pub. All this nonsense that's coming out now. So it can be seen like that as if you just look at it at the surface. But if you dig a little bit, it's obvious nonsense, and people really need to start to dig, because the tragedies that are actually going on, the suicides, the collapsing of businesses, and the old folks just being neglected. I mean, there was one point early on in this where my missus was being called up practically every 5 minutes. Her phone was going, will you come and work in this old folks' home? Will you come and work in that one? Because basically the carers were running away because they were so frightened. And so these old folks, some of them totally dependent on being fed or given these medications to keep them alive. I'm not condoning these medications. I think they're appalling, but extending life in a very unnatural fashion. But, basically that's why they died, not because of any virus whizzing through the care home. Most of them had no respiratory symptoms whatsoever. And she was seeing this very early on. And this is what we're hearing. Of course, you start to say that, and it's all blasphemy. But the docs that we know who are saying different on the front line, my partner who's saying different things on the front line, there are other people around her who are terrified. They're still terrified. doctors and nurses are not immune to this enormous amount of fear-mongering that's going on. Although one source of ours, he says that he works very much on the front line and in many COVID wards, and he says that, he'd say that 90% back in March or whatever believed in this, and now probably about 80% of those have woken up. And this is nonsense. But a lot of them are very frightened to speak out because, they're worried about their jobs. They suddenly don't get any money. The whole thing is just hanging this money over us and hanging this carrot. I mean, I've taken some helicopter money. My business has gone down. I mean, in some ways it's come up with the consults that I do online for autoimmune. Sometimes even just for fear now. People are terrified. And so I talk to them, that side of the business has come up, but other sides have gone down, like our carnival conferences and whatever that we've had to cancel and lost thousands on it. And my whole music career really, has collapsed as well. I mean, I'm okay. I have a great life here. I have a lovely family and I'm pretty chilled, but how it's hit so many people and the suicide rates going up and all these dreadful things. So why people can't see at the moment that whatever's happening, the death rate, even the fake death rates, where they've tagged COVID onto somebody that's been hit by a bus, or had a motorcycle accident, I heard, or all sorts of things. Even if you use those figures, the cost of the lockdowns is so much higher. So we need to get rid of this fear. I mean, I saw a beautiful meme a little while ago where there's some great big sort of board and there's a cliff edge and there's this crowd standing on the board, and over the edge of the cliff is this guy on a pulpit sort of preaching at them, and they're all going, yeah, and they're all subservient. They just need to step off the board and this guy falls off the cliff. And that's the situation we're at the moment, I mean, I understand there are some people completely free, completely taken in by this, but I reckon now as I walk around supermarkets with no muzzle on, and there are maybe 3 or 4 other people in the supermarket without muzzles on, and we just sort of laugh as we see each other, and sometimes I'll go up and high five them or even give them a hug. I love it. I love that rebellious nature of it. And I just know that there's other people in that supermarket, maybe 30% have now seen through it. If they take it off, if they just get rid of the fear, get rid of the compliance, and just say, listen, fuck you, to the people who are doing the control of this, and say, I've had enough, and I'm not complying whatsoever to any of this, and it will be over pretty soon. It might be over anyway. I think there's probably a tipping point coming. I'm very optimistic, but I still do get a bit shouty when I drive around the car and particularly see people in the middle of the street with them on, and I don't find it so funny anymore. I just want to just go up to them and kind of take them off and say, listen guys, come on, stop it, don't be so silly. You can't really do that, you can't impose on them, but that's the way it is. I mean, I've not had fear. I've been affected by it hugely, but fear, no.
Well, there are people who, as you mentioned, you alluded to, not finding it so funny anymore. There were certainly a lot of people, I remember around the time of the first lockdown, and we're both speaking here in the UK and most of our experience is UK based, one of my former radio guests, Thomas Sheridan, summed it up very well with this expression of a lager and Netflix holiday. I think there were a lot of people who suddenly found themselves furloughed, and they could just watch Netflix, play computer games all day, and they could drink in the morning because that, and it was all just great, and they were having a good time. And those people are now more conspicuous by their absence. They're not quite so bullish anymore. It's not funny anymore. I don't know if you've come across those people.
Yeah, of course I have, yes. And I mean, if they've got nothing else, I found a great purpose in this. I've been lucky that, I've been part of this whole sort of health and sort of spiritual well-being, sort of arena. And so I found my place in it in a way, but these times you've got to be very careful, because I honestly believe that there is a serious battle. There's World War III for sure, right? And I think that will become evident over the next month, but that's been going on for a long time.
Oh, I've said this before. It's amazing that you've said that. I've talked to people before about World War III started years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a war of infiltration, not invasion. and it's within countries, very difficult to disentangle. But I also think there's a kind of a spiritual war, and I think a lot of these influences, I don't know where they're coming from. I do not believe that humans could do to each other what's happening right now. And I'm actually starting to think, take David Icke, for example. I was at one of his talks in about 1998. In fact, I met a girlfriend there in one of the talks, and, he was going on about all this reptilian thing. And I thought, well, that's a bit far-fetched. But nowadays, everything else he says right now is so spot on that you start to wonder if there's something going on. You look at the old Vedic knowledge, the battle between the Devas and the Rakshasas. You hear people sort of talking about these sort of war between these extraterrestrial beings who sort of rule the planet and whatever, and other parts of the galaxy and whatever. And I don't know about that. I don't know. But there are some real sort of satanic forces at play right now. And it was funny because I had no problem with the fear. I've not had any fear of it whatsoever. But there are certain things that are happening now. And on a personal level, I found it when I put out a video on my channel called Criminal Rheumatologist Destroys Family. And it was about a guy who had, a rheumatologist who'd been trying to force this wonderful mother, single mother, to give her 6-year-old these horrendous medications that destroy you for the kid's juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And it was actually a message to him. And it was a very passionate one because, they were trying to take this kid away through the social services. And I ended up very involved in it and going on a call with the police and the social services as they sort of bullied this woman, really, trying to get her to take these poisons. And it brought so many people out of the woodwork. I made it purely, really, to send to this actual rheumatologist. I had his email address. I sent it to him. He's probably seen it. He probably thinks I'm a nutter. But it's what I'm saying, honestly, is spot on in that, how this horrific repeat business model, the satanic Rockefeller business model of chemical polypharmacy, which was designed sort of 100 years ago or a bit more. And they took over all the medical establishments in the States, all the medical colleges, and got their representatives onto the boards on the understanding that they'd fund them. And this is how this system came into place. And all of the great healers who were doing wonderful stuff with natural methods were disgraced. They were run out of the country. They were often murdered. And still, if you're one of these people that one of the many people who understand how to cure cancer, which is really not rocket science, if you start to do that, the chances are that you'd end up face down in a swimming pool, And when you see all of that going on, it's easy to see how barbaric it is that what they're doing to children. It's bad enough with the adults I consult with who have been destroyed by the medical system. And I was seeing this particular video I made. It brought out a load of people from the woodwork, people who'd had their children absolutely devastated by these drugs and vaccinations and all kinds of things. So these kids were destroyed, and the whole thing with getting involved in this actually really affected me. And Jeremy Ayres, who's my colleague in the Human Unleashed, who's been doing this longer than me, and 30 odd years he's seen this stuff and had developed sort of techniques to deal with it. I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. I'm dealing with it. I'm fine. I'm all right. He's saying you're not. You're probably not. And it really does get to you. And that, with the world situation and the worries with my kids and them starting to try to introduce muzzles at my kids' schools, and all these ridiculous things that were going on actually really made me sick. And in the middle of October, it just failed me. And this was why we've put this off for a month, because I've been really sick. And I thought I was immune to anything like this. And I, excuse my probably too much detail, but I was kind of shitting blood for a week because I had this horrendous gut issue, probably some, bacterial issue or something like that. Or who knows what it was. I don't know. I don't go near doctors. But this triggered off the same autoimmunity of like 10 years ago, and incredibly severe. And I was just felled. I was sitting on the sofa and I couldn't move. I was pissing in jars, okay, rather than walk to the toilet with the agony. And now I'm cool. I've sorted it out. 95%. The other will sort of get rid of itself. I know how to do this. But I had to take a huge step back from the situation. The people like us who are on the front line of this, not in the NHS sense, but in dealing with people's fears and people's illnesses and all of this horrendous stuff that's been caused by this massive deception that's been given out to society over the last 100 years or more, and ramped up massively in the last 20 years. When you're on the front line of that, it can really get to you. I'm so passionate to help people to heal, that I was doing huge amounts of research as well. And, all the time I was listening to podcasts. If I woke up in the night, I'd sort of set a podcast on 15 minutes for sleep timer, and I was listening to that, and I just never stopped. And I had to stop. I had to pull back, and I had to take time for myself. And it wasn't fear, but it was just overwhelm. And I think a lot of us are being caught in that too. And to get out of this huge flare I had, like, in late October, I had to bring into play everything I knew, every technique about, fasting, dry fasting, pure carnivore diet, because I could sort of cheat on a few things after a while, after healing the gut. But I had to heal the gut back up again, and everything, like Hippocrates said, and many of the systems of medicine, all health begins in the gut. But this is not what modern medicine really understands. So I had to heal my gut up again, and I've done now in the same amount of weeks as it took me years to do before. So my knowledge is sound, but I found that I was vulnerable, and I had to be very, very careful because, you think you're immune to this stuff, and you can just burn the candle at both ends if you want to sort of go in and research and help people, but you have to take time for yourself right now, and everybody needs to get out of the fear because there is a collective consciousness, there is a morphic resonance, there is an akashic record, and we're all plugged into that, whether we know it or not, and we absolutely have to protect ourselves from the horrific things that are going on right now, and take time. We need to take time to get our feet on the ground. We need to eat the right food. We need to meditate. We need to visualize our lives with gratitude, rather than panic about the hankering for the past or horrified views of the future. We need to enjoy our families. We need to, gratitude is at the root of this, and the inability of the brain to see anything in past or future, and to constantly tell ourselves that we are on this path to clearing up the world. We're on a path to health. We're on a path, and I'd let myself get out of that, really, just for the sake of an enormous amount of research and helping other people. And I wasn't living for my own health. And as I often say to the people who consult with me, when they consult about the kids, particularly, and I always say, well, imagine you're on an airplane, and when it's going down, what they give that safety speech. What is the main thing they say? You take your own oxygen mask, and then you put it on your kid. Right? And so often this stuff comes from the damage that has happened to the parents and over their lives. And this is entirely the fault of the complete brainwashing that we've had from the diet people, the medical system, the agricultural people, all the corporations. And that's led their parents down this horrendous path that has messed their kids up as well, even, from birth. And then we get thrown into a whole cycle of vaccines which messes up the immune system, without a doubt, without being a conspiracy theorist. It's on the package inserts, guys. Look at it, It's not being a conspiracy theorist. And so, it can damage us, whatever side of this we're on. And so I think it's a time to really, really take care of ourselves and to understand how the fear is it comes about. I made a video about this a while ago, because at the end of everything that David Icke said, he said it's all about love. It's all about realizing that we're connected and whatever, but he didn't give a technique to do it. And I don't think we really have time to go into it here, but maybe if you could put a link to, I did a video called Corona Awakening, the cure for corona fear or something like that. And it was, I thought I'd make something to maybe extend from what David Icke said about how to do that for people and how to get into a basic state of understanding who you are really as an entity, that you're a spiritual entity having a physical experience rather than the other way around. And that immediately wipes out so much of the fear. But even within that, you know, if you get caught in just caring for other people too much over and above yourself, it can really damage you at this time particularly. I find that with the people I'm consulting with, they're having a much more difficult time of healing right now because of all the lunacy that's going on, whether they're watching the mainstream or whether they're worried about what the mainstream's doing. You know, either way, they're having a more difficult time of healing, and all the normal things that I would tell people to do are taking longer to work. It's a very difficult transition time for the planet, so we absolutely need to take care of ourselves. So, you know, I go into it in that video. We'll probably, you know, if you want to link to it under that, I go into it. Maybe it's too much to go into here, but you know, there are a lot of other people out there, you know, doing it. The EFT crowd, the emotional freedom technique, the Byron Katie's work, Joe Dispenza, marvelous techniques he's got for it. If people look into that, they'll find a beautiful way out of this fear. Many different ways, whatever appeals to them. But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of influences around now, Greg. Hey, what do you think? That are holding us back from whatever we try to do, whether it's business or awakening or healing or whatever. It's a crazy time.
It is. I'm just going to rewind very quickly to something we said a while ago, because I've just suddenly remembered it before I forget again, about YouTube subscriptions. So I pretty quickly, when I established my YouTube channel, the subs went up at a steady rate, you know, a healthy rate, got to 16,000. I remember got to 16,000. It went to 17,000 in a few months. And I was thinking, oh, this is great. You know, it won't be too long before I'm through the 20,000 barrier. It then got over 17,000 and it just ground to a halt. And there's something going on. So going from 17,700 to 17,800 has taken about 9 months. It doesn't bear any resemblance to the reality of the fact that I've got more on the website, legalisefreedom.com, but also on YouTube. I've got more listeners, more communication. I get more messages every day than I can respond to, so that the activity is there, but the subscriptions have just stopped dead in the tracks. So if anybody's listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, because the more subs you've got, the more attention you get. You mentioned David Icke there. I would refer listeners also to a recent video I did called David Icke, Is He Right?, which was based on my experience with meeting and working with David Icke, so my reflections, which largely overlap with yours, about his message and his view of life. To go back to something you hinted at a few minutes ago, I talked about this whole Netflix and lager holiday that people were on for a while, and then suddenly it wasn't funny anymore, and reality began to sink in. You mentioned also, we were talking earlier about old people and those who are vulnerable, maybe have physical issues already because of their age, and how they're suffering unduly and unnecessarily in this. Also, this applies very much to children, so it's at humans at both ends of the spectrum of life, as it were. And some of the most troubling things for me, I'm not a parent, you are, and you'll have more to say on this, no doubt, but some of the most troubling things that I've heard throughout all of this is hearing from parents and grandparents about how the children have been traumatized by this, of what's being done to them needlessly, in my view. I read a story the other day. It was just a Facebook post from a contact and a friend of hers whose children her child had defecated on herself in class, just through no apparent reason other than just being terrified of everything that was going on, and that just couldn't take any more. And I've spoken to colleagues who have said to me, one in particular I'm thinking of, a lady who's a grandmother, and she's talked about her grandchildren, how they've changed. So those are not the little kids that I was grandmother to. These are just terrified little people who don't want to turn left, turn right, go up, go down. They can't do anything. They're paralyzed by fear. And this, particularly when it's happening to children, this is going to colour the rest of their lives. Whatever plays out in the next few months, we're going to be living with this for the rest of you and I are similar sort of age. The rest of our lives, until the day we die, we're going to be living with the fallout from this. And I spent years in the music business. I had so many people I've known who've been driven to the brink of despair about having their livelihoods wiped out. I've just seen so many people losing their jobs, and all of this for what exactly? So it fucking pisses me off, Phil.
Mate, while you were talking about that, I had a proper lump in my throat. I really did, because it's yeah. Well, my daughter, she's just gone to secondary school, and some of her friends being forced to wear muzzles. And I was going to take her out to school, and I might do anyway soon. I might home educate them anyway. But she's now one of only two who are exempt from masks. I just said, look, I've had enough. I'm not fucking having this. You're not going to muzzle up kids. To me, it's the same thing as vegans, really. I mean, if you're going to be fooled by the whole cult of veganism and you want to do that to yourself, fair enough. But don't do it to your kids. Don't be ridiculous. It's destroying kids' lives. It's killing them. Their teeth are falling out. They're getting rickets. They're getting, it's bollocks. The whole veganism thing is bollocks, and it's hurting people. And you don't do that to your kids. And the same thing with these masks as well. If you want to walk around the streets, your own business, you're an adult, looking like a complete idiot and recycling all your CO2 and breathing in all those plastics from the mask, and also recycling your deuterium, which nobody has figured out yet. It's a huge thing. The body tries to get rid of all of these things via the breath, and now you're just recycling them. It's absolute nonsense. People are ending up with all kinds of stuff and bacterial pneumonia and all sorts. There is no science whatsoever behind these masks. And there's a beautiful episode of two women who are real PPE experts, and they're talking about exactly the science behind the masks and how there's nothing they do whatsoever, and the dangers far outweigh any benefits. There are no benefits. And then, if you don't believe there isn't a virus, anyway, it becomes even more preposterous, of course. But what they're doing to the kids, I mean, a kid has never had a problem with it. Kids don't spread it. None of this happens. I mean, even with these vaccines now, they don't even know whether it stops them spread. It's all nonsense, 90% success rate, which is completely faked anyway, for something that our immune system has a 99.7% success rate with anyway. Why the hell would you take it? So, this business of the kids at school, it really gives me a lump in my throat. This local school, the secondary school that my daughter's gone to, is part of the transcendental meditation movement. And I'm having a lot of arguments with them, and I'm saying, listen, you guys are supposed to be ushering in the age of enlightenment. And all you're doing is pandering to this satanic crap and pushing veganism at the same time, of course, because they're all tied in with the spiritual thing. And they don't realize how many of our friends have died of cancer, who eat this nonsense in this town. But I just, I'm talking to my daughter, and we make light of it, and they're not really being affected to the same extent as a lot of their friends are. But she is. I took her to dance class after they opened up for, after months. And she came out visibly distressed. Now, I went in with her the first time, and I said, look, no hand sanitizer. Don't put that shit on her. Don't aim that temperature gun right at her pineal gland. Don't do that. If you've got to do it to let her in, put it to her wrist. I don't want somebody standing there with a mask on, aiming a gun at my child's head. This is not the sort of thing that you want in their consciousness. The whole thing is very, very weird when nothing's ever happened to children with it. Nothing at all. But she was visibly distressed that she's seeing her friends without facial expressions. They've got these ridiculous things strapped to their face. And it's happening with I hear in France, these incredible tales of women who've been forced to wear masks during childbirth, and you're like, oh, come on, what the fuck are you thinking? It's ridiculous. At that time, you got to recycle oxygen, you're breathing heavily, and then you have your baby who needs to look into your face, and what is it? And then suddenly this bit of material. I mean, the damage that we're doing is unbelievable. I just hope we can pick up the pieces afterwards, and I know that we're going to be busy. I mean, at the moment, we're already talking to some of these beautiful counsellors who unwind PTSD and all sorts of trauma and stuff. And we know that some of those are affected horrendously because this is unprecedented times and because we've looked into it so much. And we're trying to put together courses even and for these practitioners, because I have how to help people to deal with this and where they should go to see how this has unfolded. Because if this does unfold, whether it unfolds or not, I mean, they're damaged and they're waking up individually, or whether suddenly there's some media blackout and we get told exactly what's going on. Imagine that. I mean, the people who are going to be walking around freaked out like zombies. They're just going to be so damaged. They're going to need people to go to. And a lot of the time, these counselors are not equipped. So we're attempting to put together something in the Human Unleashed for these counselors, to give them some kind of a roadmap, to take them to the places where they can find out how this happened, what's been done to them. Because a lot of the counselors are not aware, even though they've woken up a bit, that's not their area of expertise, but I guess it is with us, to find out exactly what's happened and to get rid of this hopefully to get rid of the distress and confusion and damage that's going to be caused, even if they all wake up to what's going on. I'm sure we've all got damage from this. But the kids really give me a lump in my throat, man. I mean, thinking of a kid that frightened that they're kind of shitting themselves in class, it's just absolutely, absolutely tragic. I saw something in the local paper and I put it up on Facebook. I kind of, photographed it and whatever. And they were saying, oh, isn't it wonderful? They're celebrating their diamond wedding anniversary, and they can watch each other through the window at this local old folks' home where the wife can come and visit the husband who's in. And I thought, fuck that. Go inside, give him a hug. For God's sake, you might never see him again.
Well, this is, the conversations that I've had as part of this series, Freedom from Fear, have all pivoted around the idea of all our fears being traced back to fear of death. So basically, and this is something that is being played. It's being played upon now. The idea that life is supposed to be safe. It's inherently unsafe. What a trip it is to be born to incarnate as a human being on this planet at this time. Why do you want to be safe? Just fucking hold on to the handrails and grit your teeth and pray for the best, It's not meant to be safe. We're all going to die, and we're going to die soon. And I'm not just talking about you and I as middle-aged men. We're all, in the grand scheme of things, we're all going to die soon. What do you want to do between now and the day that you die? Do you want to just be paralyzed with fear and doing nothing? One of the things, my sort of couple of personal mantras are, it basically is to don't be afraid of anything. But also don't wait. Don't wait to, all the things I should have done, the things I should have said that were not said. So don't wait, because this tonight, Phil, could be the last night of my life. I don't know that. I don't think it will be. I hope it isn't, but it could happen. So don't be afraid and don't wait. And everything's in suspended animation now. And it seems to be one of the things. It's like, wait. And all those ideas you had about a future, forget that. That's not going to happen. Wait. Wait until it's safe.
Yeah, totally with you, man. Totally with you. I mean, this ridiculous fear of death. It's all about health span. It's not about lifespan. It's like, I often get this, among death threats from vegans and whatever. I get about, you've got to live longer, and the longest lived people are plant-based. I mean, this is all obviously complete nonsense by these two books, the China Study and the Blue Zones and whatever. Those communities live longer because they enjoyed life. They were out in the sun. They have tremendous social life. All of these things create longevity, and also they kind of misrepresented the fact whether they eat meat or not, which they all did. So it's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with health span. It's got to do with figuring out how you're enjoying life. And if you enjoy life and you stay in the present and you stop panicking about the past and the future, that's how you live longer anyway. That's how these people all were. You're totally right. A lot of these people had no fear of death. The death is just something, it's a transition phase. I mean, who knows? This is the dream. And then when we die, we wake up. And that's probably the case. So why on earth would we be frightened of something that happens to absolutely everybody? And that's exactly right, what you've said. The fear-mongering is about death. Oh, look at the death toll. Look at this. Look at that. I mean, these COVID death figures that are completely fucking faked on the mainstream all the time. And this is what we've got to be frightened of. So we've got to stay in our houses and live these kind of half-lives. And that's it, exactly. You're absolutely spot on. This is what I say to the vegans, right? So why would I go back to a plant-based diet when I've eaten meat, nothing but meat, and it's fixed all of my issues? Why the hell would I go back to some plant-based diet? It's not about lifespan, it's about health span. I don't know what happens when I die, but I know that I have no pain, and I used to be in crippling agony. So why would I go back to the things that gave me this crippling agony? So that is the total shift in perspective of health span and not lifespan. How to really enjoy the present moment, the techniques to keep you right now, because it's so, I mean, Eckhart Tolle, he's a kind of corny, but he's pretty cool with the whole present moment thing. If you are right in the present moment, you really have no problems. All of your problems are fears and false beliefs and traumas from the past and fears about the future. If you can absolutely be in the present moment, as many of our ancestral people were, and hunter-gatherer people are, because, they have the problem in the present. What's happening now? It's raining. We need some shelter. It's cold. We need some fire. We're hungry. We need some food. This is the present moment. Whereas now we're in fight or flight the whole time. It creates this enormous stress and creates all these modern diseases. And if we can get out of that and just be back in the present, like Eckhart Tolle says, the power of now and books like that and all that sort of great stuff. It's a lot of it isn't so practical for a lot of people and doesn't relate back to that ancestral thing, which I think is the key, where people were like that probably all the time. And so Eckhart Tolle is still one of these gurus who makes it out to be some kind of special thing, which I don't think it is. But to get back into that beautiful state of mind as much as you can, just keep on referring yourself back to it. I'm in the present. I'm right here, right now, doing whatever task it is, and I'm so grateful to be alive, to be doing this task right now. And I'm going to feel the fulfillment from this instead of thinking, oh, well, my knee's hurting a bit. I go, how can I find that? How can I find a way out of that? Or I'm worried about the mortgage now, or I really don't get on with my missus, and when she gets home, she's going to start shouting at me again. And, the kids are just a burden to me, and, all of these things. I hate my job. All of these things that we get stuck in because of our, this is exactly what we're trying to do in this Red Pill Revolution book, of take people out of this, as you said, relying on third parties, always looking to somebody else. You see, I'm fascinated by the whole Trump-Biden thing at the moment. Fascinated by it. And to be honest, I hope Trump gets back in. But I don't think it's our absolute savior. I'm not sitting around like some people saying, oh, well, when Trump gets in, it's going to be our savior or whatever. Whatever happens, happens. You've got to take responsibility for your own happiness, for your own sovereignty. For you've got to figure out a way through this now. You've got to maybe, if you're worried about stuff over the winter, as we are, some of us, we've got a few freezers full of meat. We got some generators to run it if the power grid goes down. We got, we might never need it. Hopefully we won't. But, trust in God, but tie up your camel. But just stay in the present and enjoy what's going on right now. Because I think it was nice. There was, you're probably aware of a sort of, guru-ish type of self-improvement coach, or whatever he was called, Wayne Dyer.
Oh,
and
yes.
Although, he did get one thing wrong, and I think veganism probably killed him, but, he was pretty cool in so many things. And he was talking, I remember in one of his talks about his manager, his agent or something like that. It was on his deathbed, and he went to see him, and he said, "Wayne, look," he said, I've spent most of my life worrying about stuff, panicked about stuff, 99% of which never happened." And I thought that was just so spot on. And on our deathbeds, as you said, we regret the things we didn't do, not the things we did do. And just hanging around and being panicked and waiting for stuff to happen, it's not a way to live. It was funny, when I was, I guess, sort of mid-20s, something came to me, and I've been using it, this speech, I was actually sitting out the back of my house, smoking a roll-up, and something came to me. I had to run back in and jot it down. I thought, where did that come from? It's one of those things that comes down from the sort of Akashic record or whatever. And it wasn't me really. And I wrote it down. I've used it as a particular bit of speech for one of the characters in my novel. And I've also used it in my arthritis book as well. The arthritis is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I've used it because it was just, I can't remember all of it, but it was just the essence of it was saying I'll be happy when is the road to unhappiness, the beginning of the road to unhappiness. And it absolutely is, because we're all of us sit around and go, oh, I'll feel much better when I get that pay rise, or I'll be better when it comes to the summer, I'll be better when Trump gets in, I'll be better, all this kind of stuff. I'll be better when we get the vaccine. And it's all nonsense. We've got to live in the present, and you're so spot on about that. It's a fear of death. Ultimately, everything comes back to a fear of death.
And that's what I said earlier about looking to outside agencies, third parties, for your well-being, and those third parties can also be events. They can be points in time. And it's like Yoda is, when he's talking to Luke in Star Wars, it's like always his mind, was elsewhere, never on where he was, the present moment. And Eckhart Tolle is right on. You said a bit corny, but I'd recommend his book, actually, A New Earth. If anybody wants to start with Eckhart Tolle, that's his second book. Get that one. One of my favourite films by John McTiernan, director, who's most known, I suppose, for directing the Die Hard films, is The 13th Warrior. This is basically about the Vikings. And these guys were talk about living in the present. That's all there was to them, And one of them at one point says to someone who's from outside their culture, hurry to meet death before your place is taken. Death, as maybe the ancient Egyptians saw it, as the beginning of a journey, a transformation, something to be revered, something that will face us all, but nothing to be afraid of. The most momentous things that would ever happen to us after being born is to die. Having no fear of that is incredibly empowering. Another radio guest of mine, Rory McSweeney, he said it in his book. I'm paraphrasing him now, but basically that which makes us so exceptional is also what makes us so impoverished. And what he means by that, and this was, all sorts of thoughts are coming to me now about previous conversations I've had, but Bernardo Kastrup, my radio guest from a few weeks ago, he said it is our metacognition that makes us different from animals, and that's what Rory was referring to in that which makes us so exceptional, makes us so impoverished, is because we think. We have a sense of the past, we have a sense of the future, the passage of time, and that allows us to be the amazing unleashed humans that we can be, but also it can send us into a maze of torment, of fear, of our impending, mortality, as it were. So it's a double-edged sword, I suppose.
Oh yeah, I mean, it puts me in mind of one of my great mentors, Jack Kruse, Dr. Jack Kruse, and he has a great saying. I'll probably mess it up a bit, but humans are the only ones intelligent enough to create artificial light, but stupid enough to live under it. Because it destroys all of our circadian cycles, which messes about health completely. And it's the same with diet. We are the only ones who create our own food and are stupid enough to eat it. Every other species finds stuff in nature, and we become so disassociated from that. And yeah, the fear of death is huge. I mean, there's really two things that happen when we die, right? Something happens or nothing happens. So why would we be worried? If you're waiting for the afterlife, great. If it happens, great. The alternative, if it doesn't exist, nothing, blackout, gone. Nothing to be worried about that. We lie down in bed and we do that most of the night, barring dreams. So there's really nothing to be frightened of about it. But that is our, I think, well, I don't think it's our greatest fear. I think our greatest fear is public speaking, isn't it? When people are asked about it, which is ever so strange, because I don't really have that. I love going and chatting to a group full of people. I don't really understand that one. I mean, I have other fears, but I don't have that one. And death, yeah, I have a bit of it. Of course I do. I have a bit of butterflies, You have, you lean a bike over a little bit too far in a wet corner and you go, oh my God, But it's ultimately you can rationalize it. And I think faced with my death, if I had something sort of that I knew was going to cause my death, if I was sort of lying in a bed, because it won't be a hospital bed, believe me, unless it's a huge bike crash or something that takes me there, in which case, I'm not stupid. I'll go to hospital for broken bones. But, if something's going to take me out in the next few days, I think I'll be quite at peace with it. But in the moment, yeah, of course you're frightened, because it's the fight or flight thing that helps you to, ease off on the throttle a bit, or run away from the saber-toothed tiger, or whatever it is you need to be doing right now. So yeah, that's great. It's just the chronic fear of it, that people particularly have now. And that's exactly what they're using to control us with this. And once you see that, it's impossible. It's impossible not to see through everything that's going on and to get rid of the fear of everything. There's many other things that can harm us, as I said before, with the overwhelm of the whole thing and what's going on if we don't protect ourselves, and open ourselves up and get in the way of some of these satanic influences that are going on now. But yeah, the fear that nobody needs to experience that is fairly easy to get rid of, I think. But deep-rooted in a lot of people, and what our controllers want us to be feeling right now.
Yeah, well, I think that might be a good point on which to bring the conversation to a close for today. Phil, I think the sentiment that you aired towards the top of the hour about when we die, we wake up, that's how it feels to me. I had many years ago, I underwent a past life hypnosis regression session, and the one thing I took away from that was that I don't know how this will resonate with you, but I was not from here, that when we die, we go home. And this is a sentiment, I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dolores Cannon, but this is a sentiment that many people have expressed when they've had near-death experiences or other out-of-body experiences. So the idea that the ending of this, such a blink of the eye incarnation into this bag of flesh, is something to be terrified of, is so far from reality.
This is exactly the sense I have of it, Greg, yes, personally.
You mentioned you've got this book coming out. Maybe, I don't know if it's too early to say where that will be available if people are interested. Certainly your other book, your arthritis one, people can find that in all the usual outlets. That's an e-book as well as, I don't know if it's a physical book, I can't remember.
Yes, it's a physical book. It's a print on demand with the Satanic Amazon, but put it on there before I realized that I'd really rather not have it on there, but it's kind of easy at the moment. But
so whether it's your own website or Human Unleashed, before we sign off, just give listeners whatever resources you'd like to so they can find out more about the subjects we've been talking about.
Sure. Well, I can be found at my website, which is, just philescott.com will point to it, philescott.com, or pureactivity.net. That's my website, which has details of all my consults and whatever. If anybody's out there listening with sort of autoimmune issues or want to know about how to implement a carnivore diet to reduce inflammation and fix diabetes or autoimmunity or whatever, the details are on there. My work with the other boys is at thehumanunleashed.com, and if you go there and sign up to the mailing list, then you'll be notified of the book coming out. But some of among our own Human Unleashed members, because we have hundreds of hours of content now, of videos of all four of us chatting, and I think there's a sort of consensus that we have quite a good rapport between us, and have different aspects, because we've come from very different backgrounds to probably the same point of thinking. So we have a very rounded view of all of this and very open minds, and so we have a lot of talks there on different subjects. And I think there's 30 days for free, so you can get through a lot of the videos. But on there you'll find details of how to sign up to our mailing list and get details of the book. But we gave it to some of our members, and the reviews we've had over the past week have absolutely blown me away. I'm so pleased. I think this is quite an important book. I think what we've done is we've not gone right down the rabbit holes. We've not told everybody what to think. What we've done is to give them an idea of how the world works in all of the different aspects of health, money, politics, spirituality, all of these things, and how this has happened, and how we have been duped in so many areas, and just to invite the reader to do their own research, and not to push anything down their throats whatsoever, but to say, look, this is what we've discovered, go and research more. Don't believe what we say, research what we say. And give us a lot of outlets in the end, of the book to take this further. But it would apply to not somebody who's sort of suddenly, or been researching for many years and understands all about this and is well into QAnon, all of this sort of thing. It's not like that. It's how to explain to somebody who maybe hasn't thought about this, maybe who's just started to wonder from looking even at just the mainstream. Hang on a minute, there's something a bit wrong here, and this is a really good entry point for people, I think, to get into that. We're working on another one about diet as well, and that should be out in the new year. We're being quite productive at the moment, but sorry, I'm waffling too much about our contacts, but thehumanunleashed.com is the place to go to find out when that's coming out. And it won't be long. We're right there. It's going to be the next week or two, and then maybe audiobooks in the new year and whatever. So that's the next one.
Splendid. Well, once again, Phil, thank you so much for joining us again today on legalisefreedom.com.
Greg, it's always a pleasure. You always bring out some good rants from me.